So, hi, how are you? How was your day? It's still morning, but yeah, I hope everyone is great. All right, some more people are coming. Yep, we're just starting, so come, come. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my session. It's easy to create a good looking product, but how about a useful one? And as a developers, we tend to want to build things, do stuff, but sometimes we make them like they are working amazing, but are they really practical? Are they satisfactory? And how we can solve those issues. That's some of the things that we are going to see today. My name is Eleftheria. I'm a community manager at Hashnot. Hashnot is a free blogging platform, and I'm coming from Greece. You can find me on my social media or on my email if you have any question, or later in the break, I will be here. Okay, today we are going to see what is UX and what is UI, the differences between these two fields. UX stands for user experience and UI for user interface. And the different thing that we are going to see today is how we can leverage these things and how we can learn from the perspective of the user and the perspective of the designer slash developer. Because although there is an ocean of content out there, sometimes they don't really explain some things. But we are going to talk about this. And then we will continue with heuristics. What are they? Again, why are they important and how we can use them? We will see the 10 usability heuristics. These are like 10 rules. These 10 rules, they're not coming obviously from me, but we will see again the details. And last but not least, we have two quick sections. One is about UX, some tips, and the other one is about UI, the good and the bad of a UI designer. Okay, let's start. UX and UI. As I mentioned, we are going to see those things from two different perspectives, from the perspective of the user and the perspective of the developer slash designer. And I will start from the perspective of the user because it is a little bit easier. We will first demystify UI and then UX, and the same then for the developer. So from the user's perspective, a user interface is what he sees in a product, what he taps on, if he likes something, if he don't like something. And the whole experience is localized in the device. So are they using a mobile? Are they using a big screen, a small screen? Is it something different? But from the other hand, the user experience is what the user feels. Is he cracking a smile when he is using our product? Is everything as smooth as it should be? And again, the whole experience is external, like it's in his body. We can see by the smile, by his hands, by his, I don't know, by his body if he likes or not something. Okay, and then from the other hand, we have the designer's perspective, and this is a bit more complicated, so I thought I could start with an analogy. And from the designer's perspective, we can see from very far away the tip of the icicle, and that's the UI design. But it's not only that. Beneath that, it's a huge mountain that holds everything together. And it's not only that, but it's the water, the atmosphere. So what holds everything together? This is the UX. And we couldn't have the UI without the UX. We couldn't have only the tip of the icicle. Now, from the designer's perspective, the user interface is what you can see and what you can interact with, but the user experience is what you can see alongside with you can't see and whatever you feel when you use the product or the app. And let's go a bit deeper and let's see what is UX again from the user's perspective. And it can be both objective and subjective. UX has to do a lot with the ease and satisfactory that a product can give us. So if we talk about subjectiveness, does the user connect emotionally with the app by cracking a smile? And are the icons and illustrations understandably enough? Is the user pleasantly surprised by an animation or some feedback? And on the other hand, it can also be objective. Can the user actually do what they supposed to do? And are they capable to do it fast and ease and with satisfaction? all these are questions that the designer has to think and give an answer. So I will give you a short example here, and everyone will be able to understand it because it's very simple, but I will explain why I'm giving this example. So imagine a ride-sharing app. Would you prefer an app that doesn't allow you to save your favorite destination, that doesn't show you in real time where your driver is or where you are located, doesn't allow you to pay with cards? Or would you prefer another app with the same design that it lets you do all these things, save your favorite destination, pay however you want, have multiple tracks, pick up your friends, and all these things? And yeah, obviously the answer is that you prefer the second app. But I'm saying this because sometimes we are creating our own products, or we are in a company and we are creating a product. Because we really know that product, we have developed it, we think that everything is easy and we can do everything fast. But try to give that product to someone else, maybe outside of the company, maybe your testing user, and see, like really see, can they do the same stuff as fast as you can? And after they do it, are they happy with it? Can you see like the satisfaction in their face or in their body? These are some questions you can keep in mind while you are developing. Okay, I hope that by now you have understand why UX is important, and it's because at its core, UX is about putting people before technology. We are not going to talk about technology here, only about people and emotions and how we can do things better. And its focus is always on creating positive experiences for the users, and the result is a win-win situation for your user, but also for your company. And now let's check what a UX designer actually do. But before that, we will have a very quick history lesson about design. So here in the image, you can see Don Norman. He is the pioneer of user experience, and he started working at Apple. Before that, he studied electronical engineering, I think at I don't remember, somewhere in USA. And then he did a master's in design and in psychology. Now, he is a pioneer because he was the first one that he actually observed how people interact with products. Before that, we didn't really have design, we didn't really have the user experience. So he really pioneered in that field, and that's why we have Apple and iOS as we know them today. He has written a lot of books. They are easy and they can be understood by everyone. You don't have to be a designer. You don't even have to be a developer to understand his books. This is one of my favorite books, The Design of Everyday Things. And side note here, you can find it for free also if you search a bit. All right, so now let's answer my question. What does a UX designer really do? And he does a lot of things, really a lot of things. I have here this pyramid, and we will start from bottom to top. So user research and analysis, this is the first thing. And in this stage, we will have user interviews, user behavior studies, focus groups, and surveys. And also the researcher will create user personas, user stories, empathy maps, and customer journeys. He will do even more things, but I have here just some basic things. And then we will continue with the content strategy. In this stage, some people find it a bit boring, and the researcher, they won't be alone. They will have maybe with them the marketeers and other people to help them. So in this stage, we have writing product copy and micro copy, selecting the right wording and tone for the target users. This is really important. Writing emails, messaging, and designing, again, emails. And after that, we also have the information architecture. This is the core because it what will hold everything together and is what will have all the team, the designers, the researchers, the marketeers, and everyone. So in this stage, we have how the data is organized and presented heavily influences how the product is consumed and used. And on the other hand, we will do again a lot of things like cart sorting, sitemaps, wireframe, user flows, and more of this stuff. It's not mandatory that we will have all of this stuff, but it's nice to have at least a few of these. It depends on your product, it depends when you're at, and these things. Okay, continuing, we have the interaction design and the visual design. I'm not going to get into details about these two stages because we will see it in a bit from the perspective of the UI designer. So let's keep them. And we saw UX, we saw user experience, and now I think that we can continue with UI. And again, before I answer this question, I will just give you a clue. UI, it's not only what it looks. Sometimes we think that UI is only colors, is only images, is only maybe even selecting a font size, a font family. It's not only that, it's much, much more than that. And I will try to show you that through examples. Here, for example, this is, okay, everyone knows what it is, but this doesn't have to do with colors, it doesn't have to do with buttons, it doesn't have to do with typography. This is audible, and we can hear something, we can shout to a machine, and we will get answers. This is also part of the design. And if we go back, we also have this one. And this one, everyone knows it. Again, we didn't have images, we didn't have anything fancy, but this is a primitive form of design as well. Now, what does a UI designer do? And we have the same pyramid, but this time we will focus on the two top layers. And here we have the interaction design, which the designer will focus on surface details like, yes, iconography, typography, and colors and stuff like that. And the designer has to know a lot of things like typography, color theory, iconography, illustration, visual hierarchy, and a lot more. It's a very broad field. But then we also have the visual design, where here the designer will focus on possible variations of a screen and how it will respond to different input. Really important, don't forget about responsiveness. And here a designer is good to apply design patterns effectively, create component libraries, and establish complete design systems. Again, these are some of the stuff. It doesn't mean that we always have all of them, but it's nice to have as much as we can. And it always depends on the product, on the company, if you are solo, if you're working in a team. Yeah. All right, don't forget, as I said, about responsiveness and about testing in all the screens. Okay, cool. And I hope that by now you have understood the differences between UX and UI. But just to recap, UX from the perspective of the user is what we feel, whereas UI is what we see. But from the perspective of the designer or the developer, things are a bit more complicated. We can't have UI without UX. UI, either we want it or not, is part of UX. So sometimes if you see on jobs that they are asking about a UI designer, sometimes they mean a UX researcher and the opposite things. Or sometimes they ask about a UI designer that will know everything. This is very, very hard. You can't know everything. You saw how many things a designer or a researcher has to know. So it's very, very complicated. And sometimes I'm afraid that even companies don't know that, or the person who writes the ad. Okay, let's continue with the second part of this talk, which is heuristics. And heuristics in one sentence is making decisions with the information you already have. But now let's go a bit deeper. I will start with a quote that I really like, and it's coming from Don Norman. It says, good design is actually a lot harder to notice than poor design, in part because good design fits our needs so well that the design is invisible. We want to achieve that level. Okay, and we have numerous of heuristics, and we will focus only on the last column, the heuristic analysis. And this is because it's a bit easier. We can understand it a bit better even if we haven't done any big research, and it's with 10 simple rules. Whereas other heuristics, they maybe have a lot more rules, maybe they are more complicated. So we will focus only on the heuristic analysis here. Now, how to conduct an effective heuristic evaluation? we have to answer some questions. So first of all, define the scope of your evaluation and ask yourself or your team, what do I want to test? This is very basic. And know your end user. Ask yourself, who is this product for? Choose your set of heuristics, and as I mentioned, we will follow here specific guidelines. And set up an evaluation system, identify issues, and last but not least, analyze and summarize your findings. Because maybe you have done a great research, but if you can't see the results, if you can't summarize the results, if you can't pass the results to your team, then the research is like it never happened. Okay, now we will see the 10 usability heuristics, and I'm just saying that these are the 10 rules that we want to follow. These rules are coming from Don Norman. They were manifested in 1995, and we are still using them, and that's how Apple also started. The first one is visibility of system status. And here, as I write, people love to keep things under control. They want to feel secure. Imagine like your phone. You will unlock it, and very quickly you will see the time, the date, if you have emails, if you have any notifications, if you have battery, if you have signal, you will have a lot of information. Imagine how it would feel if suddenly you didn't have those things. You have them, and this is control. Your user wants the same thing. They want control. They want to see things with ease. So always keep in mind that. And let's move on to our second rule, which is match between the system and the real world. Again, this is coming from many years ago, and it started with the skeuomorphism design. This is when we have a product, something, and we want to have an icon of it, just it is in the real world. For example, in your phone, you will have a compass, you will have a folder, you will have the clock. This is how we also have them in real life, and this is the skeuomorphism design. So if you're doing something, maybe you could have that, the skeuomorphism design, or of course, you can have something new. But always match between the system and the real world. Our third rule is user control and freedom. And every design should have an exit or an emergency button or something, because either we want it or not, our users will make mistakes. Sometimes they will be a little bit fast and they will misclick or mistap something. So we always want them to give them the freedom to go back or to undo something. And again, it's really, really important. Our fourth rule is consistency and standards, and this is one of my favorite. I have one more, I'll show you in a bit. But it's consistency and standard. Just because you have an innovative idea, I'm sorry, but it doesn't mean it's always great. Maybe you could test it with other people, with other users, and see if it actually is. If you want to have like something very innovative in your design, again, really test it, because it doesn't mean because it's different, it's going to be good. And of course, when we say consistency, I have seen that a lot of times. And I will give you an example. Let's say that we have a bin in an app or something. Always use the same icon and always use the same words. If you want to delete something, use the word delete, not one time delete and the other time erase. Always go for consistency. If you are using a color, a shade of blue, always use that blue color. Don't just change things. It's really, really important, and it makes it looking more professionally. Then we have error prevention. And as I mentioned a bit earlier, our users will do mistakes. Even if we have a great product, which we will have, they will make mistakes, okay? But we have two actually type of errors. We have the slips and we have the mistakes. So the slips are the things that the users will do wrong, but as we said, we will have an emergency or an exit so they can go back and fix those things. But on the other hand, we have the mistakes. So when a user is doing a mistake, it means that we did something wrong. We didn't fix something, or we didn't design something, or we didn't go very deep in our research, so we haven't done something right. So this is our fault, and we have to go back and test again, research again, and fix that. Okay, the other one is recognition rather than recall. we have two types of memories. One is recognition and the other one is recall. So recognition is when we see something and we can very easily understand what it is, like when you see someone and we know who he is. And recall is when we have to go through in our memory to find something like a date, like maybe a name from an old friend. So in our apps, in our products, in our websites, we always want recognition. And how you can achieve that is, for example, with images or with having something that is easily recognizable, so the user won't have to think. There is also a book, like the user don't have to think. Okay, and now we are in 7, flexibility and efficiency of use. We have different types of users. Like we have the power users, which are people that they know our product and they want to do things fast. But we also have another category that are the beginners. Maybe they are not so good with technology. Maybe they are older people. Maybe they have special needs. So we want to provide something for everyone, for the beginners and for the power users. Always think about that. Maybe a beginner will need to see the instructions, whereas maybe a more advanced person will want shortcuts and connections with other apps and stuff like that. So we should always provide and make it as good as possible to make everyone happy. The other one, which is also my favorite, my second favorite, is aesthetic and minimal design. Sometimes we are under the impression that we are really good with design, and because we saw something or because maybe you're painting, we have a keen on eye for design and stuff like that. But really, do we really? Again, test your product to see if that's indeed the case. And my biggest advice here would be, if you're creating something, use white space. If you're not good with colors, use a lot of white space and make the font size a little bit bigger. Not always has like good eyesight or they wear glasses. So always make it big and make it wide. Don't use a lot of colors, or if you want to use colors, there are specific websites that they can help you with color combination. So be very careful with things like that. Declutter your app, declutter your product, and let your users see only the things that they have to see. Continuing, we have help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. As developers, probably we have seen like a lot of weird errors in our lives, and that's okay when we are not in production and we are just testing something internally. But when our product is out in the world, we definitely don't want something like that. Help your user understand what the issue is and how they can solve it. Always do that. And you can see it in the example as well. And last but not least, we have help and documentation. We should strive to make our product as better as possible, but sometimes it's good to have help and documentation. Not that just good, but we should have help and documentation. And some good examples are Trello, Slack, that they have some minimal things and they can help a beginner user. So always do that. Keep your language very simple. Don't use many technical terms. Think that many of your users, maybe they are not native speakers, so they may have some issues. Try to keep it simple, and it will be awesome. All right, these were the 10 rules, and something that it would be nice to keep in mind. But we will continue with another quick section. It will be some tips for specifically UX, user experience. Okay, let's go through them. Don't assume you know what users want. No, because you're a developer and you know your product. Yes, okay, that's perfect. That's how it should be. But that doesn't mean that you know what the user wants. Really, if you can do that, I would really suggest you to observe how someone is using your product. It's really important. Okay, don't follow the hippo in the room, and the hippo stands for the high paid person's opinion. Sometimes in meetings, we have our managers, we have CEO, CTO, and we will say, yeah, that's nice. But no, it's not. Just say something, because eventually you will help your users and the product will be better in the long term. Do make the time and effort for user research, and I hope that with the tips that you saw today, it will be a bit easier for you. Don't just create a list of methods to check off. It's not a to-do list. Don't prototype too soon, even if you will test later. First, do your research and then continue with everything else. And do conduct scoping research, not just evaluative. Do focus on what people do rather than what they say, because maybe they are your friends, so they will say, yeah, your product is nice, this app, yeah, of course I can do everything. So really, really test them. And if you can find people that you don't know them, so they won't care if they hurt your feelings in something, that's even better. And by the way, you can do that. There are many platforms that they will give you users. You will say, I want 10 users, 20 users, 100 users, and I want them to be from Africa or Asia, or I want them to speak English, or I want them to speak, I don't know, Portuguese. So yeah, it's easy to find users, but you have to pay. Anyway, if you can only do one thing, do conduct user testing and don't overlook existing insight from customer care representatives. That's actually a really, really good tip. I was recently in this position in customer care representatives, and I saw so many things that I wouldn't imagine for our products. People sometimes have questions and we feel that this is something that they should know. So when we see a lot of people asking the same questions, it means that we are probably wrong and not the people. And this is something that you can see from customer care representatives. And of course, collaborate, always collaborate. You're not alone. Do find someone qualified to do your research or be qualified by yourself. And again, I hope that with these tips, you are in a bit better position. And now let's continue with our last section. It's also going to be a quick one. And here we will talk about the UI designer. We will see the good one and the bad one, and you can pick whichever you prefer. Okay, some thoughts here. The good designer listens to everyone from decision makers, team members, and stakeholders, whereas the bad one judges and suggests solutions all the time. The good one questions the status quo and digs deep to find out real problems and needs, whereas the bad one follows the rule, we've always done it that way. And I'm sure that this is something that you have heard in meetings in Slack channels or whatever. The good one takes time to ask about what is missing and is always uncertain about his understandings and designs, whereas the bad one follows his assumptions and is always certain about his work. Again, maybe some of you can relate to some of these things. I don't mean that you are like that, but maybe someone that you know is like that. And the good designer loves working with others, collaborations, as we said, revisits his thoughts, has someone to learn from anyone he meets, whereas the bad one loves to work alone, tries to confirm his thoughts, and thinks he knows everything. The good one loves to be wrong and seeks feedback, whereas the bad one loves to be always right and seeks praise. And the good one leads, whereas the bad one follows. Feel free to pick your side. And that's it by me. If you have any questions, I will gladly answer them, or feel free to find me on social media on break, ask me questions. I'm always looking forward on chatting and learning more. Okay. Thank you.